السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we'll continue with Surah Al-Qalam and verse number 10 to 16, inshallah. From 10 to 16, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all al-ikhlas, sincerity, purity of intentions, and to make us among those who are the people of the Quran. طيب, repeat after me, inshallah. Verse number 10. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ولا تطع كل حلاف مهين هماز مشاء بنميم مناع للخير معتد أثيم عتل بعد ذلك زنيم أن كان ذا مال وبنين إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين سنسمه على الخرطوم ولا تطع verse number 10 ولا تطع كل حلاف مهين. تنوين after it meme takes two counts. هماز, the meme with shadda takes two counts. تنوين after it meme two counts. هماز مشاء for the five counts. مشاء بنميم خلاب. مناع, the noon with shadda takes two counts, but then the tanween after it lam doesn't take غنة. مناع للخير معتد أثيم, same thing, no غنة because it's ألف. عتل, tanween after it باء gives the meme sound. بعد ذلك زنيم. أن كان إخفاء, أن كان ذا مال وبنين إدغام. إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين سنسمه على الخرطوم. The translation of the ayat: and do not obey every worthless habitual swearer, scorner, going about with malicious gossip, a preventer of good, transgressing and sinful, cruel, moreover, and an illegitimate pretender, because he is a possessor of wealth and children. When our verses are recited to him, he says legends of the former peoples. We will brand him upon the snout. These verses, as we heard, it shows some evil characteristics. It was revealed with regards to Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the chiefs of the disbelievers. But as a rule and a principle in the Tafseer of the Quran, that what matters is the content of the verses, not what was the verses revealed for or related to. So this is what matters. Why? Because Al-Walid ibn Mughira died. And the Quran is a book of guidance till the day of judgment. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for the book of Allah that it would come down to the Prophet ﷺ throughout the 23 years of the messengership of the Prophet ﷺ, and according to incidences, actions, things like this. But at the end, what we have is the Book of Allah, perfect in its order, the verses of the Quran, one leads to the other. The surah as a surah, even though the verses might be revealed in different times, but it gives the perfect meanings with different needs to the heart, and for us to learn from the Book of Allah. And for us to learn, for example, these verses of today, and to be warned against these evil characteristics that we'll talk about inshallah ta'ala briefly, we have to come to these types of sessions with what the previous verses had added to our hearts. So this is also such an important concept when we're going through the ayat of the Quran. So for example, then we heard about the characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ, that praising the Prophet ﷺ with the manners of the Prophet ﷺ, and the knowledge of Allah, and warning not to obey the deniers, the liars, those who deny the truth, and how they plot against the truth, and they would love for you to compromise your religion. For them to compromise, they have no problem with that, but they want is for you to compromise your deen. Then these verses comes in place. وَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ مَهِينٍ. After saying فَلَا تُطِعِ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ, do not obey the mukaththibin, do not obey the deniers, or those who denied the truth. So now here, وَلَا تُطِعِ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ, do not obey كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ مَهِينٍ, every حَلَّاف مَهِينٍ. Now let's count these evil characteristics that are mentioned here. وَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ مَهِينٍ, do not obey every حَلَّاف. حَلَّاف is someone that makes halif, or he swears frequently, lying, constantly swearing. And that's halaf, since it's sighat mubalagha, that means in the Arabic language, someone that does this a lot, that means it's a sign that he's a liar. So if someone swears a lot, that's a bad sign. That means he is a liar, if he swears a lot. And that's why the believers, they don't swear by Allah unless they're asked to swear by Allah. Like in front of the judge, for example, things like this, in the context of shahada, witness, but not to have it in one's normal talk like this. And that's something that we should also make sure that our children are away from this, not to be raised to always swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person is truthful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that they are truthful, right? And they should speak the truth, and they should not have to swear by Allah every time they speak or so. Otherwise, if a person swears a lot, he does this so that people believe him. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تُطِعْ, do not obey every halaf, when someone keeps on swearing like that in a frequent way, because he's most likely to be a liar. And he would not be a liar unless he is muheen. Muheen, that means he's humiliated one. He is someone that is degraded in his own self. He's not someone of honor, someone that has a low manners, someone that has no zeal to do what is good. His irada, his zeal is always in personal desires. That is always, physical desires. That shows how humiliated he is. And that's an important meaning. When you live in a world where they praise when people fulfill their desires just for the sake of fulfillment of their desires, this is something that we need to protect ourselves as a human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored us, that made us different than animals, in which we have irada, we have a will for the person to do what is right, and not just to follow his desires. And the desires will be fulfilled. It doesn't mean that we should oppose our desires. No, the desires that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created in us, it should be fulfilled, but in the proper way. And the proper way is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, which is the most perfect way. So how these characteristics are, each one is something that we need to be warned against. And when you put them together, it gives the worst individual whatsoever. And compare this to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, that indeed you are upon great manners. So do not obey every halaf, someone that frequently swears, which is a bad sign. Muheen, someone that has no eagerness to do good, whether it's again Walid ibn Mughira, Abu Jahl, others, and then Muheen, as Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, liar, he frequently do evil. Some said is the one that has weak heart. That's, as we said, no zeal, no strength in his heart to do what is good. He's always just following his desires. He is muheen, he's humiliated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Someone that is just basically like the animals, and the animals are better than him. So, and then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Hammazim, Masha'im binamim. More of these evil characteristics. Hammaz, that means he is always talking bad about people, exposing their weaknesses. When he talks about people, he always talk negative about them. This person has this person has that, and also comes into the meaning of al-ghiba, someone that always makes ghiba to the people. As Ibn Abbas he said, Hammaz, meaning the one that makes ghiba to others. He always talk bad about people. And the ghiba, ذِكْرُكَ أَخَاكَ بِمَا يَكْرَهُ, when you mention your brother in a way that he dislikes. And when they said to the Prophet ﷺ, what if what I said is in him? أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ فِيهِ مَا أَقُولُ. That means I'm not lying, because the previous verse talks about liars. But now Hammaz, that means he says the truth. Even if he says the truth about someone, in his absence, there is a negative thing about him. It's haram, it's ghiba, this is major sin. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنْ كَانَ فِي مَا تَقُولُ فَقَدْ اغْتَبْتَ. If he has what you're saying, this is ghiba. This is what the definition of ghiba is. You're not supposed to talk about people behind their backs, even in a matter of being truthful, if it's something that is bad about them. Unless you're warning or so, but this is exceptions. So Hammaz, and it also shows that this is a frequent thing. And usually when those do ghiba, they are frequently doing it. It's not once in a while. And Masha'im binamim. And al-Hamz also, as we will see, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. Someone that would make face gestures to belittle people, making mockery of people. And al-Hamz is with one's hands, or it can be with one's hands, even a gesture of the hand, or with one's speech, things like this, so whether it's in front of them or in their absence. So this is Hammaz. And then Masha'im binamim. Masha', as you see, these characteristics is not something that is done at one time or occasionally. It's all in sighat mubalagha in the Arabic language. It's in the text of being done frequently, that he's doing it a lot. Masha', someone that walks, and he always walk. Al-mashi is to walk, but masha', that means, and you see even the shadda in it, masha', that means he constantly walks among people with the namima, binamim. And the namima is when a person takes the words of someone to someone else to cause enmity. So this is what he does to people. And how much this is happening, we see in our life, and people are indulged in this. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, this is the characteristics of the most evil people. This is one of the things that people are punished in the grave because of these types of characteristics. One of the most common punishment in the grave is because of the namima, as the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. As the Prophet ﷺ passed by a grave of two people, he said, إِنَّهُمْ لَا يُعَذَّبَانِ. They are being punished now. وَمَا يُعَذَّبَانِ فِي كَبِيرٍ. And they're not being punished for something major, meaning it was very easy to avoid, even though it's a major sin. أَمَّا أَحَدُهُمَا, as for one of them, فَكَانَ لَا يَسْتَتِرُ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ. He used to not to hide himself, or when he urinate, or he does not used to clean himself, as different meanings of it. And as for the other one, which is what is meant here, فَكَانَ يَمْشِي بِالنَّمِيمَةِ. He walks with a namima. And that's what the meaning of a namima is, that you hear someone saying something about someone else. So you go to that other person and say, what, so and so said this about you. And what that causes, causes people to have enmity in the hearts towards one another. This is the namam. This is the one that spreads a namima to cause corruption among people. You see that, and we can talk on more and more about how we see that on a daily basis. And the shaitan works on these types of things. And one person of evil, and the believers should be very wise to be warned against this. One evil person can cause so much corruption in the community, for example, right? He can take the words of that person to send to another one, and so on. And when a person is whether it's weak iman or being foolish, to listen to someone that brings to you a negative statement from someone else, you should be angry with the one that brings you that, because he's committing namima. But what we do usually, we get angry as from the one that that is not present. Like, you understand what I'm trying to say? Is like, you say, for example, someone comes to you and he says, so and so, he says this and this about you, that you're such a bad person, that you're not trustworthy. When someone says that to you, who's the one that you're supposed to be angry with? Is that person that is saying that to you. He's doing namima, not the one that he is saying or relating from him. What a person would say, but he's warning me. Warning is a different situation, and a person has to be sincere. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in the hearts, and if a person is warning, that's different, and especially if there's harm to happen and things like this. But we have to be extremely careful from these types of things. So hammazin, masha'in binamim, each one is a subject by itself, as we see. Manna' lil khayr. Another thing is manna'. Manna' also is sighat mubalagha. Mana' is when someone deprive of or withhold something of goodness, and al khayr is goodness. So manna', that means he's constantly withholding good. But he prevents, he does not bring goodness from him, and he prevents people from doing the same thing. Whether it's an obligatory spending, or kafara, for example, expiation of sins, or whatever, zakah, things like this. He's manna' lil khayr. He prevents people from spending their money for the sake of Allah. Or, as Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he said, he withholds or he prevents people from being Muslims. Like as they used to do, as the kuffar. Like if you become a believer or so, I'm not going to spend on him. I'm going to disown him. Like this, like people would do. And so manna' lil khayr, with all what that means. Mu'tadin, he's a transgressor. He transgresses upon people. He commits injustice against them. He's upon falsehood and he wants to harm people. Mu'tadin athim. Athim, the same thing, from sins. He's always upon sin. He's committing sins all the time. This is what he does. This is his norm. And then عُتُلٍ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ زَنِيمٌ. عُتُل, the word عُتُل is someone that is evil, someone that is it's a word that brings all kinds of meaning to it. He's someone that is harsh, someone that has no mercy in his heart, things like this. And al-utul, which is also mentioned in some of the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. And al-utul is more of a title for the person, but it has a characteristics to it, which comes from al-atl. And al-atl is when you push someone or something hard, like خُذُوهُ فَاعْتِلُوهُ إِلَى سَوَاءِ الْجَحِيمِ, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about in the day of judgment, in the hellfire, take the disbeliever, فَاعْتِلُوهُ, that means push him hard into the hellfire. And al-utul is the one that has like the same as the root meaning of pushing someone hard. He has that harshness in him, that he is that image of a person that he's always committing injustice. He steals, he takes people's possessions, whatever, all kinds of evil things that they're upon this. عُتُلٍ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ means after, with all of this, and all of these people do not obey them, as we heard in the beginning. عُتُلٍ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ zanim. And the word zanim is someone that is, they call him da'i, someone that pretends or he claims that he has honor, that he has a lineage of this and that, and he's not. And this is one of the means of jahiliyyah, one of the major sins for someone to attribute himself to a lineage that does not really relate to him. So عتل بعد ذلك زنيم. So and also the issue of this is all again evil characteristics that a person would have, and as you see here that it's again it's not related to one particular person, but it's in general. And when we say az-zanim, it comes from someone that is attached to something, which basically he claims to be attached to this tribe or attached to this lineage when he's not. So عتل بعد ذلك زنيم أن كان ذا مال وبنين, is it because he has money and offsprings? That's why all of these evil characteristics, because he's upon this, which is another meaning that when people are wealthy, when people have status and they have these evil characteristics, it's you see that as an example of it makes a person blind of being upon the truth. If a person is not be careful, this can make him more of an evil person. And even though when he is given wealth and he's given a status, he should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that means instead of being grateful to Allah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him money and gave him status among his people, and to humble himself that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed that upon him, instead he is foolish and ignorant that he would have these evil characteristics. إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين. If our ayat, if the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is recited upon him, he would say أساطير الأولين. الأولين, the early ones, meaning the long time ago, they musattara, that means it's legends or fairy tales or things that they wrote in the past. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing that the punishment that is going to happen to that person, سنسمه على الخرطوم. سنسمه, that means we will basically brand him on his nose with humiliation that would never leave him, because when someone is branded, when someone you stamp someone like something that stays with the person, so that means he's going to be thrown into the hellfire, something that would never leave him whatsoever. And that's what happened to him even in this life, that his nose even was cut off. And so it's that he will be, this is how his punishment will be in the day of judgment. This is how his punishment will be in the day of judgment, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will humiliate him in the day of judgment. So this is Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira and the like of him. And how can then a person obey someone that has these evil characteristics? So in a way that we are warned against having these characteristics, or even one of them, and to, of course, to imitate the way the Prophet ﷺ that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised, and do not obey those who have these types of things. Do not follow what they say and what they spread among people. We have to be warned. A Muslim is someone that is wise not to fall into the evil prey of those who are evil. So when we see the words, again going back to verse number 10, وَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ مَهِينٍ. As we see now, this is you see how the words are similar in the way that it's in a continuous manner. So halaf from ha, lam, fa. So this is someone that is constantly swearing, habitual swearer, right? Halafin, mahin, mahin from mim, ha, noon. Someone that is haqir, someone that is worthless, someone that is he looks humiliated, someone despicable, someone like this, mahin. And that's basically one, as we heard in the tafsir of it. And it doesn't have to be someone, when someone has a weak heart to do what is good, this is also fits that characteristics, because we need to strengthen our hearts to be upon what is good. And people see that in matters of worldly life. If someone doesn't have any zeal to do anything, he's just lazy, he wants to depend on others, he doesn't care about things, this is not a very good thing. So you can imagine if it's the same thing with matters of deen. Hammaz, again, as we said, from ha, mim, zay, which means that he is he defamed people, he spread evil among people. And this is like waylun likulli humazatin lumaza. And this can be with one's hands, with one's tongue, with all kinds of things, and it's done also as a habitual thing, as a frequent thing. Masha from mim shin ya, that means he's always walking, going about, going around with. And namima, this is where that brings evil among people, to cause enmity among people. And actually the word comes from nun mim mim, which is comes from even the sound. It originally comes from a sound that a person makes. Manna'in, someone that is a preventer, from mim nun ain, constantly preventing. أمنعون الماعون وأمنعكم, like this. مناع للخير, to al-khayr, or goodness. معتد, transgressor. Athim, sinful, not once or twice but constantly. عتل, as you know, whether it's cruel or harsh, or it's all things together, really. And bad characteristic, someone that is extreme in evil. بعد ذلك, after that. Zanim, as we said, from attached to, or to claims that he's upon something when he's not. Ankana, that means because, or whether it's because, or how can he be like this when he ankana the mali wa banin, he's an owner of wealth and offsprings, which is one of the delights of this life. إذا tutla, when the recited, tutla عليه آياتنا, our ayat is recited unto him. قال أساطير, stories, but from sin تقرأ, on things are written. الأولين, the former people, those who are in the past. سنسمه, we will brand him, from waw sim mim. سيماهم في وجوههم, like this. So سنسمه على الخرطوم, on the khurtum, and the khurtum comes from خاء راء طاء ميم, which is, as they say in the translation, snout, which is basically on his nose. Now, and this is the only time that is mentioned in the Quran. So it's as you see, verses that warns us clearly from these evil characteristics, and each one you would find a hadith of the Prophet والسلام, to explain it and to be warned against it. And it's when a person stays away from these evil characteristics, this is halfway, and then to adorn and beautify oneself with the goodness and the good actions that is opposite to this, by following the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Then after that, the story of the people of the garden will be mentioned. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us benefit from this, and to perfect our manners, and to give us the best means to be among those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. طيب, barakallahu feekum. We'll stop here then, we'll continue next time. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.